Her name lit up his phone for half a second, then he locked it. Too fast. I was 22, home from college for the summer, working a job I didn't need because he insisted on paying for everything. My father was careful, not just with money, with people. He thought before speaking, planned before acting, avoided conflict even when he should have faced it. That made him predictable, and predictability, I was learning, was a kind of vulnerability. That Sunday afternoon, he left his phone on the kitchen counter and went upstairs to change. He'd never done that before, not without hesitating, checking, making sure it was in his pocket or his hand. I watched him go, listened to his footsteps on the stairs. Then I looked at the phone. The screen was still unlocked. I had 30 seconds, maybe less. I picked it up, not to spy, to understand. The notification was still there, her name, a message thread I didn't recognize. I opened it. Not just one message, a conversation, long, detailed, personal in a way that made my stomach tighten. Plans, meetings, dinners I hadn't been invited to. Then I saw the attachment, PDF icon, legal header. I opened it. Property transfer, our house, the address I'd lived in since I was 4. My name was on it, as witness, not beneficiary. His name and hers, the woman I'd never met but had apparently been part of his life for months. The transfer was dated 2 weeks forward, pending his signature. I put the phone back, exactly where it was, screen down, sat down at the table. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I expected to feel something loud, anger, grief, betrayal. Instead, I felt something quiet, like a door closing, like understanding something I couldn't unsee. When he came downstairs, I was exactly where he left me. "You okay?" I asked. My voice sounded normal. He nodded, smiled, relieved. He thought I was tired from my shift. I was, but not the way he thought. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling and made a list in my head. Everything I'd seen, the lawyer's name, the date fields, the property description, the transfer amount, less than market value, I realized later, a favor, not a sale. Then I got up, found his laptop. His password wasn't hard, his birthday backward, the same one he'd used for every account since I was old enough to notice. I went through everything, 6 months of emails, bank movements I didn't understand at first, transfers to accounts I didn't know existed, a rental property, a car purchase, all flowing toward her, all planned while I was at college, while I was studying for exams he asked about but didn't really listen to, while I was believing that distance was temporary and that nothing fundamental was changing. I didn't confront him. I knew what would happen if I did. Denial, explanation, promises that would mean nothing. Time wasted while the documents moved closer to completion. Instead, I called a lawyer, not his, mine. I found her online, selected for distance from his network, for specialization in property disputes, for the kind of quiet competence that didn't advertise. I paid in cash from the account he didn't know I could access, the one my grandmother had left me, that I'd never touched, that he'd forgotten about or never knew existed. $5,000 for a consultation and preliminary work. She was younger than I expected. Direct. She found the gaps in 40 minutes of review. The timing was wrong. The notarization was missing. The valuation was outdated. Small things, technical things, but real, enough to freeze the transfer, enough to open an investigation if someone asked the right questions. Then I did something harder than finding the problems. I waited. 3 weeks. I watched him get comfortable, watched him stop checking his phone around me, watched him take calls in the open, confident that I was oblivious, that his careful planning had worked, that the finish line was close enough to relax. He signed the preliminary documents, smiled at dinner, suggested we take a trip after the transfer finalized, a celebration, just us. I said that sounded nice. The certified notice arrived on a Thursday. I was there when he opened it, watched his expression move through confusion, focus, then something else, fear maybe, or the beginning of understanding that the world wasn't as controlled as he'd believed. Transfer invalid, pending investigation,
Ownership disputed, he read aloud. He looked at me, really looked, like he was seeing my face clearly for the first time in months, maybe longer. You knew, he said, not a question. I held his gaze for 6 weeks. Silence, not loud, not dramatic, the kind of silence that doesn't need anything added to it, that exists complete. The process reversed over the following month, quietly, legally, completely. Lawyers I never met spoke to lawyers he couldn't control. The transfer died in paperwork. The house stayed. Nothing changed on paper except the absence of what he'd tried to add. We still live there, same rooms, same routines, but something fundamental is different now. He doesn't leave his phone on counters, doesn't take calls in the open, doesn't assume I'm not paying attention to small things, hesitations, changes in pattern, the weight of what's not being said. And me? I don't ask questions I already know the answers to. I don't react to things the moment I notice them, because I've learned something that took me 22 years to understand and that he still hasn't learned at all. You don't stop someone when they're doing something wrong. You stop them when they think they've already gotten away with it, when they're relaxed, confident, finished. That's when control matters most. That's when the truth, held quietly until the right moment, becomes the only weapon you need.